we will learn from this training, we're going to do an overview of Hub requirements. We're going to talk about the HUBSCO Plus features, how to log into HUBSCO Plus, navigating through it, and how to add formal and informal projects. They're very similar how you do that. There are some slight differences, and also look at running reports. So we're going to kind of start with some basics here. We're going to talk about what is a hub, and it's based on North Carolina General Statute, specifically 143-128.4, and it says at least 51% of a business is owned by one or more persons who are members of at least one of the groups in that section of the statute. And the groups that are listed on this slide, that's Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, disabled, and disadvantaged. And each of those terms is defined in the statute. So because it's statutory language, we still use these terms, even though there might be some more modern terms that would be appropriate to use for these categories. So we are looking at the management and daily business operations must be controlled by at least one owner in one of those certification categories. So you can't have an absentee owner that's like, yes, I own it, but Bob, you're going to run it for me. Take care of it all. They have to be involved on a day-to-day basis, and they have to have that management control. We also have a newer category called Employee Stock Ownership Plan. We call it ESOP because we're government and we have acronyms. So the ESOP is based on the number of owners in the program that fall into these categories. So it's a newer program. We don't actually have anybody certified yet. We do have somebody who has expressed interest in that, so we're hoping to get that rolling as well. So hub construction requirements, we're going to go through this, and please, like I said, if you have any questions about this, it's a good time to ask. State building projects, it's not really defined what a building is in state law, but a state building project, for those projects, it's a 10% goal for state agencies, community colleges, and public universities. For local governments, if there's any state funds for a building project and the cost is $100,000 or more, 10% shall be the hub goal. So that's even if you just have $1 of state funds in the project value, 10% shall be the hub goal. If it's $300,000 or more and it's paid with just local funds, no state dollars, the goal is established by the local government. There does need to be some public input on that. It does include projects done by a private entity on a facility to be leased or purchased by the local government, and that there does need to be notice and public hearing required on the appropriate percentage goal. There are some resources for how to figure out how to set a goal if you do not have to follow the 10% goal, and state UNC School of Government has guidelines for how to develop those. So what is HUBSCO Plus? HUBSCO Plus is the computer system where local governments will report on their building construction projects. It was developed by the Hub Office and the North Carolina Department of Information Technology to allow local governments to have a dedicated method to provide reports. HUBSCO was developed by the Hub Office and Department of Information Technology and allows local governments to report on hub utilization for design and construction projects. And this is for local governments only, so towns, cities, villages, counties, school systems, etc., that use HUBSCO Plus. If there's anybody on the call who is from a community college, public university, or state agency, they use Interscope Plus, and this training will not help individuals from those organizations. That system is totally different from HUBSCO Plus. There are some similarities, but this training would not help those folks. So what to know about construction reporting? Projects that do need to be reported, these are ones that have to be reported. Building projects that are $30,000 total cost or more need to be reported. So that's new construction, repair, or renovation. And so $30,000 or more, there are certain things that need to be done to reach out to vendors and encourage hub vendors to bid on the projects and report on them. So you have to report on any project $30,000 or more, whether there's any hub participation or not. Um, the As we mentioned before, state general statute doesn't really define what a building is. Um, but when you look at some definitions out there, Webster's 11th defines a building as a roofed and walled structure built for permanent use. Um, so think about a school, a school with a gymnasium, classrooms, that is a building. Um, a wastewater treatment plant that, takes in the water and cleans the water and sends the water back out, that is a building. This does also apply to wastewater treatment systems, wastewater collection systems, water supply systems, and water conservation projects. And that's applicable if the grant funds or loans specify the use of minority firms. So the HUBSCO system actually has the ability to capture square feet of a building, but it also has the ability to capture linear feet. So for those water supply systems or water conservation projects that might be, we're laying more pipes so we can move more sewage or move more fresh water. There is the ability to capture that and put it into HUBSCO. So projects that do not need to be reported. So if you've got a prefabricated or relocatable building, you don't need to report on that building itself. So purchasing the portable classroom for a school site, that classroom itself would not be something that you would put into HUBSCO. Now you might report it on the goods and services side if you're a school system, but we're not really worrying about that right now. If you have to do work on the site to get it ready for that relocatable building, if that work is going to be $30,000 or more, then you do need to be encouraging hub vendors to bid on it and reporting on that work. Street projects and utility projects that are not like the ones we talked about before, like power lines or things like that, do not need to be reported. So if you're building a bridge or if you're updating your streets, filling in potholes or building new streets, those are not required to be reported in HUBSCO. This is about vertical construction, not horizontal construction. Hopefully that people might be familiar with those terms. There are specific reporting due dates, and it depends on the quarter, the fiscal year. We use the state fiscal year that runs from July 1 through June 30th. So the first quarter covers July 1 through September 30th, and that's due on October 10th. It's always going to be due 10 days after that quarter ends. So second quarter goes from October 1 to December 31st. That due date is January 10th. That's the next one that's coming up. So January 10th is when any reports are due for projects that you complete between October 1 and December 31st. Note that that's for projects completed, not necessarily that they just started. The reports are based on completed projects. And then there's third quarter, which would be January 1 through March 31st. That's due April 10th. Fourth quarter, April 1 to June 30th. July 10th is the due date for that. Reminders are emailed quarterly to all HUBSCO Plus users. They go out twice on an automated fashion to all HUBSCO Plus users. And we will also typically send out a notice saying we're having training coming up. And we typically will, in that notice, we'll let people know when the next due date is typically as well. These dates are always available on the North Carolina Hub Office website, and the link is provided there. When we sent out the notice for the training yesterday, we did include a PDF of these slides, and the link for that uh, should be live in there. If anybody on this call does not have the slides that were sent out, please put your name in the chat and your email so that we can get the slides to you. All right. Oops, I did not mean to click on that, but move forward. Well, I just confirmed the link works. Construction reporting, good faith efforts. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So informal projects, the responsibility for good faith efforts, for reaching out to vendors, documenting everything, it's all on the public entity. It's all the responsibility of the public entity to do this. This is from North Carolina General Statute 143, 131, and it says all public entities shall um, uh, solicit minority participation in contracts for the erection, construction, alteration, or repair of any building awarded pursuant to this section. That's a lot of words there, but it means you have to reach out to hub vendors. There's another statute, and it's the one about the certification and who qualifies as a hub, that says in these statutes where it says minority, it means hub certified. And so the four things that public entities have to do: solicit minority participation, maintain a record of contractors solicited. That's all contractors solicited, not just hub vendors, and document the efforts to recruit minority business participation in those contracts. So you reached out to somebody. How did you do it? How did you document it? Did you send it by email? Did you give them a call? Hopefully, if you called them, you have a call log to say, yes, I called this person on this date. I reached them, or I didn't. I left a message, or I tried to reach them. No option to leave a message was available. So document those efforts. And then you have to report all the data and documentation of efforts to recruit those firms to the hub office upon completion of the project. So how we do that is through HUBSCO Plus. And for these types of projects, you do not have to formally advertise the bids. And the dollar range on this, it goes from $30,000 up to $500,000. And I'm going to confuse you with that. I'm sorry, but the statutes are written so that they overlap, so it is a little bit confusing. So for these informal ones, it's from $30,000 up to $500,000. However, the good faith efforts for projects that are considered formal projects, those are $300,000 and above. And sometimes it even goes down to $100,000 and above. So there's a little bit of overlap in there. And the guidance that UNC School of Government gives is if it's $300,000 or above, treat it as formal hub requirements, where there are requirements on the public agency and there are also requirements on the bidders. For informals, it's only on the public agency. For formal projects, there's items that are required of the agencies and items required of the bidders. So from General Statute 143, 128.2, public entities, before they award the contract, need to develop and implement a hub participation outreach plan. And it does say shall do the following, so that doesn't give you any option or wiggle room to not do it. So you shall develop and implement a hub participation outreach program, attend scheduled pre-bid conference, notify interested hubs about the opportunity to bid on the project at least 10 days before the bid opening. And that notification has to include a description of the work with the date, time, location where bids need to be submitted, the public entity's contact person for the project, where bid documents can be reviewed, any special requirements for the project. And you can use other media likely to inform hubs to to let them know about the opportunity to bid. So that could be a local newspaper. It could be a minority media outlet that focuses on a particular region of the state or population of the state. You could also post it on the hub office's um, solicitation solicitation opportunity page. So there's a bunch of ways to do that. We're going to talk about some HUBSCO Plus features. You can search for vendors, hub and non-hub in HUBSCO Plus. There was a system called HUBSCO. We replaced it with HUBSCO Plus a couple of years ago, and previously you had to enter all the data in by hand every single time, every time you had a vendor. This allows you to search the entire electronic vendor portal database and pull in any vendors that are in that database, and it will populate all the contact information, address information, and any hub certification information from that database. There's about 70,000 vendors in that database, and there are about 6,000 plus hub vendors in there. So it includes all the hubs and a whole bunch of other folks. There's also a vendor autocomplete for the list of vendors. So when you choose that vendor, it will populate everything you need. There's also the ability to switch between types of projects from formal to informal if you need to do that. It has happened before where somebody incorrectly went in all in the best intentions, went in and entered their data as like a formal project, but then realized at the end, oh no, it was an informal project, and they didn't have a way to just switch it out. So they had to start all over again, which was really heartbreaking to tell them that. And so in this newer version, we made it possible for somebody to switch back and forth between formal to informal or the other way. So not all of the fields are the same. If you do that, you do have to be a little careful about going back in and making sure you fill out all the necessary fields. When you're logging in, we do have a tips and tricks login, and it's basically if you are having trouble logging in and it says you're locked, your account is locked, doesn't mean permanently. You wait 2 hours and you try again. That should allow it to unlock on its own. And you can select the forgot password once that 2 hours has passed and reset your password. And then you should be able to log in. You'll receive an email once you do that forgot password that gives you a temporary password. We recommend that you do not copy and paste that, but that you type it in exactly as it shows in the email that you receive. Because sometimes when you copy and paste, there might be an extra space in there, and that could affect whether HUBSCO interprets what you write as valid or not. So that's mostly it. We do not have the hub staff, Leslie, me, Roxanne. We do not have the ability to reset your password. That is your capability, and you can do that with the forgot password part. Okay. So the login, this is what the login screen looks like. There's a user ID and a password. Again, that's where you would click forgot change password. If you put it in, put your user ID and your password in, click login, you should be able to see this next slide over here on the right. And this is your main inbox screen. So it'll show all the informal projects you've currently got open, as well as your formal projects. Once you finalize a project, it will drop off this list. You'll still be able to find it, but it's not immediately showing up when you log in, because these are the ones that you could be working on and you could submit. And from here, you can go in and edit those projects, or you can delete them. or you could add an informal or formal project. Be very careful with deletes. It's not going to, if you just accidentally click on that, it's not just going to throw your data in the trash. It's going to give you a question of, do you really want to do this? But it's there in case you need it. Just be careful about clicking on that. Okay. Um, all right. Somebody said they received an error when trying to access the tips and tricks PDF. Okay, so we'll have to check that and make sure that link is working. We'll probably need to do that after this session. Thank you, Leslie. Here is the HUBSCO plus inbox. You can see all the projects for your entire entity or just the ones that you have created. And it's up at the top. It's the show inbox for Penny Helms. That means if you click on that, you'll only see Penny Helms projects. And if you see that, it means you're seeing everybody's projects. If you went in there and it said show inbox for Union County's, it would mean that you were only seeing Penny's projects. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. It might be a little bit easier to show it than do the screenshot, but sometimes going through the live version, it can get a little bit sticky and slow. So we're going based on screenshots today. Here's the inbox continued. Here you can see where you can click edit for the projects and delete. And we're going to talk about some HUBSCO Plus administration. So these are things that you can use to navigate through HUBSCO Plus. Up at the top of the screen, that light blue color, which we did not really choose the color, so we're not skewing towards any particular school, university, or anything like that. It was just previously it looked like faded yellow paper, and we wanted something a little cleaner and fresher than that. So up at the top, there's going to be three items up there that you could just hover over: administration, projects, and report. And if you put your mouse over those words when you're in HUBSCO Plus, it'll show these drop-down screens. And your drop-down screen might be a little bit different than what you're seeing here. It kind of depends what access level you have. And if you are a HUBSCO system administrator, you'll be able to see more than if you were a HUBSCO user. The administrators can do a little bit more, and so they can see a few more options here. Okay. And so this is your list of items that you would see on these drop-down menus. For system administrators, hover over the administration word, and you can either you might not need to select the public entity. This might be just from our perspective, because you will probably only have your public entity, but you should be able to see your organization, and you have the ability to edit changes to the overall organization, and also to make changes to the users who have access to HUBSCO Plus. So when you're making changes to the entity, you can change basic information about the type of school it is, the address, or the type of public entity, school system versus municipality, things like that. You can update the address, you can update the primary contact name, the responsible official contact information, and there are several required fields in here. But as long as you fill everything out, it should be good. You may not have an extension on your phone number, and that's fine. You don't necessarily need that. So also, this is the same page, just scrolled down. It says, is the Minority Business Outreach Plan developed and implemented? The correct answer is yes. You should have one. That's part of the whole, part of the good faith efforts. And then verifiable percentage goal, you would put that in there. You might change it based on the different project, but this would be the default. And you have the ability to break out that verifiable percentage goal by certification category. Not too many people use that. Typically, people have been doing it based on just an overall goal. Um, and then there are some other things here on, how you certified the method, and meaning how you came about um, uh, determining what it should be, um, and how you decided or approved it. Um, okay. And if you do not have a HUBSCO account for your organization, there is a way to request it. And we do have an access request form available for public entities that don't already have an account. If your organization has an account, you don't need to fill that out. You can just email us and say, we've got a HUBSCO account. I need to get access to it. What do I need to do? Is it really all you need to do is tell us your name, your phone number, your email address, and what access level you'll need. And the system administrators can do this. The Hub office can do this as well, but anybody who is listed as a system administrator can go in and add new users on their own. They can edit existing users and delete existing users. And the reason you might want to delete somebody is maybe they changed jobs in your organization. Maybe they left the organization entirely. We have had people retire, and we have had people pass away. So there are several different reasons why you might delete an existing user. And we would definitely ask that you keep up with this, because we try to send out notifications to folks about trainings and about the due dates of things. And we get a lot of bounce backs from those emails. So there are a lot of folks out there whose maybe their email changed, they're still there. We just don't have the most up-to-date one. So I would ask everybody who's on this call, please log in and see if you're a system administrator. Go in to that people section and make sure that everybody there is actually a valid contact. If they're not, update their contact information or delete them as a user. The add and the edit screens look exactly the same. It's just when you do the add screen, it's blank. And when you do the edit screen, everything will be filled in, except maybe the extension, because that's not required. And it will tell you here who it was added by and the date and person who made any updates to that. So it's the most recent update. It's not like it doesn't keep a running audit of, this one was changed 15 times. The password is not visible here. So you as a system administrator and Hub staff would not be able to see that or adjust it at all. So when it comes to security access, please choose between public entity user and public entity system administrator. Right. And it looks like Leslie just put the HUBSCO access request form link in the chat. So it might be worth, if you tried to click on the link in the PDF and it did not work for you, try clicking on that link to make sure that that does. Again, if you already have a HUBSCO, if your organization has a HUBSCO account, you don't need that form. Probably if you're on this call, you don't need that form. You could just reach out to Leslie, Roxanne, or myself. And we also have a HUBSCO email box that you could send that to and say, hey, I need an account. Our system administrator is no longer here and nobody can do it for me. Then the Hub office can help you with that. System administrators also have a powerful capability of indicating that no projects were completed during a quarter. The reports are quarterly, and if you have a project in there and you finalize that project, we know you have reported on that project. This capability is for folks to say, hey, I know I need to be doing reporting. I just don't have anything to report on because we've got a big project. It's going to take a while, and it's the only project we're working on right now. So it's going to take us several quarters. So it might be you start it in August. So quarter 1, you have nothing to report. You would go in here and you would say no quarterly project submittal. And you have to do it at a specific time frame. You can either do it during the quarter or 10 days after. So until that quarter's reporting period is done, you can go in and say no projects this final fiscal quarter. You do not have the capability to go in and say, oh, I missed it. It's now July, but I missed quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. I need to go back in and do all of those. It's not going to let you do that. So you have to do it within that 10-day window after the quarter ends or during the quarter itself. I would not recommend going in January as soon as the quarter ends or the next quarter starts and doing that. If you go in between January 1 and January 10th, it's going to think you're talking about October through December. But on January 11th, if you go in and do no projects this fiscal quarter, it's going to think you're talking about quarter 3, that January through March timeframe. So I wouldn't recommend that you do it between when that previous report is due and when the end of the fiscal quarter is coming up. So just be a little careful about it. And if you have any questions about it, reach out to us and say, hey, I think I need to do this. Is now the right time? And we can help you think through that. By the way, only system administrators have this feature. If you are a user but not an administrator, you won't be able to do this feature. So adding formal and informal projects, main tips here are use whole numbers only. Don't use decimal points, even if there's no cents after the dollars. Don't use decimal points. Just type in 25000. Do not type in 25000.00. It's going to cause problems. So just use whole numbers. If you need to round, do your rounding, but bring it up to a whole number. When you can add HUBSCO plus projects a couple different ways. From your main inbox, above informal projects, there's something that says add informal. There's also over formal projects, you can add formal. Again, be careful about which one you're adding. You want to do the right one. There's another way of adding it too. And it's from the actual, I think it's from the projects drop-down menu where you can add an informal or formal project there. So a couple different ways of starting that. There is a flow to when you're entering data into HUBSCO Plus by different screens that you'll see. And sometimes you have the ability to do these out of order, but some of them you have to do in a certain order. So the first thing you have to do is add a formal or informal project. Then the next thing you would have to do is add the project main data entry data fields. Then you have the option to go to the primary designer screen or the construction contract screen. I recommend if you have a formal project, you probably will have a primary designer, you'll have an architect or an engineer. Go ahead and do that first, and then go to the construction contract screen. Once you enter in a contract for the construction contract screen, then you can enter in the construction contractor solicited directly screen, and you have the option to go to do that first or to use the construction contractor used screens. But on informal projects, you have to enter in that solicited directly screen. On formal projects, it's optional. So on formal projects, you might skip straight from the construction contract screen to the construction contractor used screen. And we'll show you what these screens mean. So I hope you don't feel like totally lost right now. Then you have the project view screen. You look at that at any time. It's read only, so you can't go in and make any changes to it. It's just to show you what you've already put in. And then there's finalize project, where you're all done entering your data. and you want to submit it, then you would finalize that project. So here's the project main data entry screen. So right after you click add informal project or add formal project, it will bring this up and it'll ask you a number of things: project number, project name, type, date you started, date you completed. There are fields in here that are required when you're starting out, but there are some that you might not know until the project is done. And we encourage you to start as early as you possibly can to enter this data in. As soon as it's awarded, go in there and get this entered in so that you don't have to panic when it comes to January 5th and the report is due January 10th. You're like, oh my gosh, I only have 5 days to enter this data and collect it all. Collect it as you go and enter it as you go so you don't get to that point of being panicked. And make sure that you're not the only one who can find the information that you need to put in here. Because you might be on vacation, you might get sick, and you might, so make sure that somebody has the ability to get to the data that you would need for this. So you have to have a project number, project name, location of the project, and that's the county. Total square footage, original project value. So what was the dollar amount of the contract originally? And then were there any state funds involved? And the state funds will kind of determine if your goal can be something other than 10%. You do have some options down here. You can save the project. And if you save the project, it will show you this screen on the right, all the stuff that you entered in. Notice there's a bunch of zeros in here. So this one would not be able to be finalized yet because it doesn't have final construction value or design related services in there. So this is just getting started on this project. You can also reset it so it stays on this field, this screen with all the empty fields, and it clears everything out so you can start over. Or you can cancel it and it will bring you back to your last screen and it will not save anything that you entered. If you'll notice up here on the right screen, it says project, then designers, contracts, project view, finalized project. It's probably good when you're doing this to work left to right. So you started with projects, then go to designers. If you're an informal project, you might not have any designers. So you could skip that and go over to contracts and just work from left to right. The project main view does have the ability to edit the project. So once you've put it in there, you can go back in and make changes. Again, the project tabs are project main, designers, contracts, project view, and finalized project. And those contracts, that covers the general contractor. If you have a CMR, who is the CMR on that project, construction management at risk, and subcontractors. So it could be the GC, subcontractors, those all fall under contracts. We're going to talk a little bit about searching and adding vendors to formal and informal projects. And when we're searching and adding vendors to formal or informal projects, it's really the same whether you're looking at designers or contractors. But we're going to look at the designer tab right now. So we already did the project. Now we're going to look at designers. We click on designers and it shows just this thing that says add new prime designer. And it does make a note that if you're using design build as your construction method, you don't add a prime designer. But if you have a formal project and it's like a single prime project, you would click add prime designer there. And then it would open up this company name, contact, address, all that information for the designer. And you can type in the beginning of the company name. You don't necessarily have to type in the entire name, but you could type in the designer's name, company name, and then click search. You don't have to fill in all the rest of this, but click search and it will pull from EVP and say, do any companies in EVP have the information that was put in the company name in their name? And it will give you a list of all those vendors that showed up based on your search. And if they are the right ones, you can click it and select it, and it will populate all this information. And what it will do, if you put in ABC and you selected ABC Designs, it would put in all this information right here. And then you would also, it would fill in the hub certification piece as well, if they are hub. If you don't find any designer when you put in the company name, you do have the ability to add a new designer. That means they're not in the electronic vendor portal system, but you can enter data about them. You would just have to manually enter all this information. So hopefully in the 70,000 vendors that are in EVP, the ones that you're using are actually in there. It doesn't always happen. There are times where contractors do not register with EVP. It's not required unless they want a contract from the state. If they are going to get a contract from the state, then they'll need to be in EVP. So you would manually enter in that contact information, and then you would also enter in the type of service and the discipline for that architect or engineer. And if you're entering it manually, it will automatically put in the ownership category of non-minority, and the source of ownership is not applicable. If it was a hub vendor, it would just say, it's a female-owned firm, and the hub office was the source of ownership. Method of solicitation you would put in there, whether it was you picked up the phone and you sent an email, or you published it somewhere. It could be both verbal and written. It could be just verbal. It could be only written. You would enter in the original contract value and the final contract value as well. You don't necessarily have to have the final contract value in there when you're working on it, but hopefully you'll be able to go back and put that in before you finalize the project. Once you've entered all this information in, you can click Save. And by the way, the types of service, discipline, and method of solicitation are listed here on the slide. So these are all the options that you would have for those different drop-down fields. Once you do that and save it, it will tell you what you have entered in. It'll give you the designer, it'll tell you the name, type of service, discipline, all that information in there. And you will have the option over here for where it says action in that column. You'll have the option to edit this, which is just go back to that previous screen and make changes to anything you might need to. You could delete this designer. It's not automatic. It will give you a pop-up that says, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Or you could add a consultant underneath them. So the designer would be kind of the company in charge, but they might have a consultant. It is theoretically possible you might have a couple different prime designers. I think it's pretty unusual in that case, but maybe one is focused on a certain specialty, and another is like more generally over the project. But adding a consultant allows you to put in like a surveyor, or maybe somebody is like contracted to do drone flybys to make sure things are going well. There's a lot of different possibilities under consultants, but you would enter them pretty much the same way as you would the actual prime designer. So we're also going to go to construction contracts, and this is how you would search and add contracts to formal or informal projects. And again, we'll be looking at the contracts tab. You would click on contracts tab and then add new construction contract. And it would ask you to complete this information. The contract description ID might be the same as your project name, but it doesn't have to be. And there's no required format for what the project name is, what the project number has to be, or this contract description ID. That is totally your in your wheelhouse to decide what those should be. Hopefully, you've got some logical way that you determine what the project name is, what the project number would be, but we don't have any requirements for you as to how that should work. You do have to enter it, but it's on you to determine what that should be. So you need a contract description, contract method of advertisement. Again, that's both published or electronic, not applicable, or published. And then the bid opening date and the contract date. The contract date is required there. And then before you finalize the project, you'll need to make sure you've got the contract start date, notice to proceed, or the contract completion date in there. And then once you've entered in everything that you want to, when you start this, click save, and you will see the information that you've entered in, and you'll have some ability to do some certain things, edit the contract. So go back to that previous screen and make any changes you need to. So if you had not entered your contract completion date previously, you would click on edit, go back and enter it in. You can also go to contractors solicited directly. It's not required for formal projects, but it is required for informals. And you could go to the contractors used, or you could delete the contracts. And if you delete the contracts, and this is pretty much the same for anywhere you see delete, if you delete this, it will delete everything that's associated with this contract. So, and it's like on the designers too. If you had consultants under that designer and you go in there and you delete the designer, it will delete the consultants as well. So again, here, if you go in and delete this contract, it will delete any contractors or subcontractors under that contract. So you can do that, just be careful about when you do it. And know that you may have to enter some additional data to get the right information in. So when you're doing the construction contractors solicited directly, so this is the contractors that you reached out to specifically ask to bid on the project. It's not we sent out an email blast to 500 contractors about the project. That's not solicited directly. If you sent targeted emails to like 4 or 5 vendors, then yes, you would put these 4 or 5 vendors in the solicited directly part. Or if you picked up the phone and you called them and said, hey, I want you to bid on this, you would put them in the contractor solicited directly tab. When you're ready to enter them, you click go to contractor solicited directly, and it will open a new screen that says add new contractor solicited directly. You click on that button and it will bring you to a screen that says this is the contract solicited directly tab. You would enter in the firm name, do a search just like you did on the prime contractor or the prime designer. Do that search, see if they're in EVP. Most of our major general contractors in the state, Balfour Beatty, Barnhill, Metcon, Skanska, all those folks will be in EVP, and you could click on them and it would populate this information. You may have a GC that's not in there, and you would have to enter them manually. But again, if they're in the system, that's great. It auto populates a lot of this information. The optional information on here is the amount of the quote received. So that's really the only optional field there. Again, solicited directly is optional for formal projects, but required for informal projects. Again, when you are coming in here, you would click the company name and you would click search, to see if they're in EDP, and then select them to get the vendor that you need. If they're not in that search list, then you click Add New Contractor Solicited. And that will be the same for when you're adding contractors used. So once you've done all the solicited firms, you would go to, again, on the contracts tab, you would click Go to Contractors Used, and select Add New Contractor, do the search for the contractor, and then select it if they're in the search, and it'll auto-populate, or click Add New and manually enter in that company's information. Once you save that contractor, this will be your prime contractor. It'll tell you all the information that you just put in there, and it will give you the ability to edit that or to add a subcontractor. And adding a subcontractor will look very, very similar to adding the prime contractor. It will actually, it tells you who you're subcontracted to. So it says who the prime is up at the top, and it gives you the contract ID description. And then again, firm name, you can use that search to find the firm and populate this information, or to manually enter the information in there. You will need to enter in the original contract value here, and the contract date. Those are required fields here. Eventually, you'll need to fill out the rest of the final contract value and the notice to proceed, contract completion date. But when you're first entering in the data, those things will be optional. Once you do that, you'll see the prime contractor listed there and the subcontractor. There's a couple of indicators of who's the prime, who's the subcontractor. This column over here, tier, if it shows a 0 in the tier, that means they are the prime contractor. And if it shows a tier 1 or tier 2, they are a subcontractor to that prime. This little, under the firm name, you'll see this little arrow symbol, and that means they are a subcontractor to the vendor right above them. So it is possible for a subcontractor to also have a subcontractor, and that's why you might see a tier 2 in here. You can see multiple tiers, but it's probably unusual that you'd see more than tier 2 on that. Sometimes people don't mean to put a subcontractor under another subcontractor. You can correct that, but it means going in and adding a subcontractor to the prime, and then going in and deleting the mistakenly entered subcontractor from the one that actually is a subcontractor. There's a lot of subcontractor words going around there. Sorry, there's so many. Project view shows all the data that has been entered. So everything that you've put in here, it will show up. If you look at this and say, whoa, that total vendor is totally missing, then you need to go back to either the prime designer contract, or the designer tab, or the contract tab, and make sure that you get the vendor in there correctly. So this is read only, so you can't change this directly. You would have to go back to the screen that you entered it on to make those changes. And once you do make your changes, make sure that you save, because it's not necessarily going to auto save anything. So make sure you do that. When you are ready to finalize the project, when you've felt like I've entered in all of my data, I'm good to go, I'm going to finalize this project, you go to the Finalize Project tab. It will immediately tell you if it detected any errors. This can be really discouraging if you spent a lot of time on this, and you're like, I'm almost done, and then you see, whoa, I've got all these errors. Don't want you to be discouraged, and the reason that we show this is to get you a little bit more comfortable with this page, and realize that it's not trying to beat you over the head and say, you did this wrong, ha ha ha. It's trying to say, hey, this doesn't look quite right. Here's where we found it. This is the page that we found it on, the field that we're looking at, the value that is showing, and the error that we see. So on this screen, and by the way, I will say this all the time, this is my favorite screen in HUBSCO. Mostly the reason for that is it lets me help people. So if people are stuck and they can't figure out what is going on, why can't I do this? This helps me figure it out. So I know this first one, there's a problem on the main project page. So I could, and if you click directly on this link, it will take you to the right page and the field where the error is. So you probably want to make sure that you understand what the error is before you click that link. But I know that the problem is on the main project page. It's the problem with the final construction value. That's the field that's there. And it's showing the field value is 0. Well, the error is, when you're finalizing it, that field needs to be greater than 0 in order to finalize it. It also needs to match the contract value. So you may get another error that says this value and that value don't match. And one or both of those would need to be adjusted so that they do. So the reason that I like this page so much is it helps step by step say, this is where the problem is, this is what the problem is, and I can help people figure out how to solve that problem. And what I will ask, if you can't figure this out yourself, and you probably will be able to, if you can't, or you want some help or guidance and say, I think I'm doing this right, but I want some help with it, take a screenshot of this and email it to us. Email it to me, Roxanne, and say, I need help with this. Can you help me sort through this? And providing this will help us guide you more. We may want to do a Teams meeting with you so you can share your screen, and we can guide you through what to click on. But it will definitely help us figure out what's going on and how to fix it. All right. And once you go to that error and you make the change and save it, it will bring you back to this page. You can navigate directly to that page without using the link. But if you use the link and you make the change and you save it, it will bring you back to this error page. So you can see that the error has been completed. It will no longer show up here. And you can go on to the next one if you have more errors to fix. So once you've no longer see any errors on here, you can go on the finalized project portion. You can review everything. It'll look just like the project view, but the difference will be at the bottom, you'll have the ability to finalize the project. Once you click finalize the project and there's no errors, it will bring you to this screen, and this red part won't be there, but it basically is telling you you've successfully completed and finalized the project. It will tell you over here, the project data was successfully submitted. It was submitted by this person on this date for this organization. The rest of this information is standard down here, but it's basically saying, keep your documentation. You got to hold on to it for a little bit in case somebody comes back and needs to take a look at it and make sure that everything was put in right. So I would highly encourage you to print this screen or keep a screenshot of it, so that you've got it, because once you navigate away from this screen, you will not be able to see it again. Okay. So take a screenshot, print it out, keep it with your documentation so that you have proof that you submitted the project. So we're going to touch base on reports. So you've entered in your report, your project, and you've saved it, you've finalized it. It's done. You may have others to put in, but you did that one. You can go into the reports section and you can see what HUBSCO is showing for your organization. And when you go to reports, you hover over that word and it'll open up annual, quarterly reports, total construction dollars, per construction method, total construction dollars per type of work. There's maybe a couple more reports on there as well. But sometimes all you want to see is what have we done so far this year? And you can do that. You can do it for your organization. You can look at it by quarter or just the whole year as one time frame. You can also look at construction methods, like how many times you used CMR projects versus single prime or other types, or the type of work that might have been done. So when you're going in to look at these reports, it will ask for the fiscal year up here, and it's not a drop-down menu. I actually wish it would be, and we might be able to convince them to switch over to a drop-down menu. But in that fiscal year, if you are looking for the current fiscal year, which is for July 2005 through June 30th, 2026, July 2025 through 2026. For fiscal year, you would enter 2026. It's looking for the ending year of that fiscal year. So enter in 2026 for that, for the current fiscal year. Then you can select, if you say on the quarter and leave that drop down as all, it's going to give you the annual report. If you click on it and you select a quarter, it's going to say quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, quarter 1. You select that and it'll only show you that quarter of information. And you can decide whether you want to see all projects or just informals or just formals. And you can also see construction or design reports as well. When you submit that data, it will show you here the dollars that have been associated with the total hub spend, the total department dollars. So that's all the money you spent. The hub ones is just from the hub vendors that you used. And it will calculate the hub percentage. So in this case, Union County Schools was showing 11.44%. So they met that 10% goal as an organization. They may have had multiple projects in there, and maybe not every single project met the 10% goal, but their organization as a whole was at 11%. And then it will break it out, the hub dollars, by the certification category. In this instance, that $28,000 for the total hub was showing under the certification category of black, and they didn't have any other spending in other categories. So that's the annual or quarterly report view. Over here, we've got the type of work. So concrete, conveying systems, doors, electrical, all of that will show up here. And then you've got the different construction methods on here. Typically, you'll see single prime or construction manager at risk. Those are the ones that we see the most frequently. And it will tell you the tier here. For the prime, it'll show you the dollars associated with that, whether they were hub or non-minority. And then it will also have, if there were subcontractors, it will tell you the dollars associated with those. So there's a bunch of links and resources that you can use for HUBSCO Plus, and this is on our web page. So we've got the link to HUBSCO Plus itself, so you can log in. There's a little bit of welcome to HUBSCO Plus, giving a little bit of history. It's a fairly short set of slides. There's HUBSCO Plus informal project training that's very specific to informal projects. There's an informal project checklist. There's as well formal project training and a formal project checklist. And there's the hub construction requirements and a good faith effort example up there. And we also have annual and detailed reports, so you can see over the years how your organization has done. And we go back to 1999 back in time. So there's goods and services as well as construction. But when we first started out, they weren't broken out that way. So they now are separate reports. Construction and design and goods and services are separate. Um, and you can also see HubCode's the link to the page that is basically showing right here. So I'm going to see if there's any questions right now. We're at 11:23, and I might see if I can bring up a website to show you some things here. We're not likely to log into HubSco Plus, but I want to just show you that. Just before I do that, and again, interrupt me if you have questions. Here's our contact information. We are hoping you stay warm, cozy, and happy, and you get to enjoy your time with your favorite people, pets, and fuzzy slippers. If you need us, here's our phone number. This is our main number, and it's typically answered by our certification team, and they can direct the call to whoever it needs to go to. This is also our general HubSco email, so you can email that, and that is checked, and we have the ability to check that. Leslie can, I can, Roxanne can check that email as well. So if you forget our individual names or emails, you could go there. If you see this image of people shaking hands and it says Office for Historically Underutilized Businesses, you're in the right place. There's a number of there are several different things that we capture on this page. We are the certifying entity for hubs in the state. So we also certify the North Carolina Small Business Enterprise certifications. So if you're interested in certification information, you would go there. That's for private companies to go in and learn about the process. We have some quick links over here. If you are not using EVP and you want to post a solicitation to our website, you would click that Submit Solicitation Opportunities link, and it would bring you here. Again, we need 2 business days to process it, and then 10 days from there until the bid is due. So if you send this to us and it's 5 days till the bid opening, we're not going to post it, because every vendor out there deserves enough time to take a look at the specs and see if it's something that's of interest to them and that they can do, so that they can give you a good quote and make sure that you're getting the right vendor to submit that. So if it doesn't meet that time frame, we'll send you a polite letter that says, thanks, but we're not going to post this right now. Please give more notice in the future, that kind of thing. But it will ask you, there's like about 5 different short pages about this length to enter to submit. We used to have it just in one long page, but it made the bots easier to submit really weird trash data to us. So this helps us actually post relevant opportunities out there. So it's going to ask you about, the type of solicitation, the project itself, and you're going to have the ability to put a scope of work in there. You can't upload any attachments to it. You can include a URL to a link that you might have to let people go see the specs. And you can enter whether there's a pre-bid meeting or anything like that. So I'm going to go back here. Once you enter that in, it will show up either on the solicitation opportunities page. If it is a disaster opportunity, there's a field to indicate that on the submission form. It will show up in both solicitation opportunities and disaster. So disaster shows in both. But when you go into solicitation opportunities, it will give you a bunch of different filters to select on. And I'm just going to select on organization. And I'm not really going to worry about which organization it is. I'm just going to click on one of these. I'm going to click on the project I want and click Show Opportunity. And this is what it will look like. It'll say, here's the solicitation due date, time. It's a construction project. Here's the organization that it's going to be submitted to. It's for this project from NC State University. It's not disaster related. Here's the project location address, information. Here's a link to the project URL. There's no additional related documents, and there's not a pre-bid meeting, not a pre-solicitation meeting. There's how to submit. Here's project contact information, so you can reach out directly to them or see the link that they include. And here's their scope of work. And not everybody's scope of work in here is going to be this involved. Some of them are just going to be 1 or 2 lines, and it doesn't have to be this detailed. Basically, what you're trying to do is whet the appetite of the hub vendor that is looking at this, and for them to say, oh, that looks like something I would be able to do, that I want to do. I want to find out more about it. I'll click on this URL, or I'll reach out to this person here. So that's the solicitation opportunity screen. And we do encourage you, if you submit on this, to take a screenshot of this or print it out, because once the bid due date passes, it will not show up on here again. We have the documentation in our system to show that it was received, what information was received, but it's a lot easier to take a screenshot of this than it is for us to go back and pull that information from the list that we use to populate it. We do have some hub events up here, so you can say, oh, there's different trainings coming up, and that might be useful for your vendors. Might not have tons and tons of things for agencies up there. Resources for small businesses and hubs. We actually have our recordings can be found through this screen under training recordings. And that, if you click on training recordings, that brings you to our YouTube channel. And there's a bunch of different trainings on here. We try to keep about a year's worth of trainings up here. We have monthly trainings on Purchasing 101. We've had some Meet the Purchasers and some data entry things for goods and services, as well as some other trainings on vendor orientations and contract management, things along those lines. So, and our HUBSCO trainings will be located here as well. Just trying to see if there's anything else we need to be sharing. Here's the hub construction expenditure reporting. So here's where you would find the reporting periods. Here's when our trainings are and when you can RSVP for them. Here's the link to HUBSCO Plus. Ignore the stuff on Interscope. Anybody on this call would not need to use that. If you are a new user and your organization is a new user, you would click here to show the access request form. Again, that's for the whole organization, not for an individual person. And here's our email address again, and here's all sorts of resources and documents here. And let me show you one more screen and then we'll call it quits. The annual report, the Hub annual and archive reports are listed here. So again, they go back to the year 2000 and they go up to 2025, and it'll show, right now we're still working on the construction report to put out here, but it'll show you the goods and services and construction reports here. And it will show you by type of organization here. This is design spend and this is construction spend. So it shows it as kind of rolled up as a high level, but then it also gets really in depth and it shows the individual agencies, all the community colleges, the school systems, municipalities will be shown there as well.